You know, Harold Wilson once said that a week was a long time in politics. So try and imagine how long 7 years is in the automotive EV landscape. Back when the i3 was originally launched in 2013, there really only was the choice of either this, the Renault Zoe, the Nissan Leaf, or if you went much more expensive, the Tesla Model S. But here we are now at the turn of a new decade, and it has changed, with new cars being launched literally by the week, with 2020 being a year of a special standout car launches. So, given all of that, is the now 7-year-old i3 relevant, or is it just an expensive folly? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. The i3 was introduced into the UK market in 2014 and it received a mild facelift in 2017 with the introduction of this, the i3s, offering a much more sporty look and feel, along with a bigger battery and the deletion of the range extender option. There are now two models available, the standard i3 and the i3s. The i3 was a really brave car for BMW to design because it's a one-box design almost, something that their main rivals Mercedes and Audi had abandoned with its A-Class and A2 respectively. The A-Class is now a familiar 5-door family hatch and the A2 was dropped altogether, yet still BMW persisted with this. But of course its party piece is these rear coach doors, just giving it that little bit extra practicality. If you can remember, Mazda did a similar thing on its RX-8, making it not just quite a pretty car, but also quite a practical car for a 2-door coupe. The i3 is a strict 4-seater with centre-mounted cup holders, meaning there's no extra space for a fifth person in here. And these doors do split opinion. My other half doesn't particularly like them because you have to have the front doors open for the rear ones to open. But I have to admit I like them, and it does give a little bit extra practicality to this small family car. The same, unfortunately, can't be said for the boot, which is a paltry 260 litres. There's no underfloor storage either because it's a rear mounted motor and rear wheel drive. And the other downside that means then is there's nowhere to store your cables if you take them with you. The rear seats do split 50-50, but let's be honest, this isn't really the family holiday car. But it's in here all that impracticality is soon forgotten with one of the best interiors of in the business. The i3 offers a large amount of space for driver and front passenger with this lovely open floor design because the gear selector is mounted up here on the column. And the i3, along with things like the Tesla Model 3 and the new Honda E, are certainly leading the way with dashboard designs, making everything a little bit unconventional, and I think that's a really, really good thing. And it's not just the actual interior itself, but it's the use of the materials in the interior that stand out. We've got things like Kenaf, which is a plant-based material on the doors and dashboard. Also, the interior of the car features up to 27 used old plastic bottles that have been recycled for certain mouldings and parts of the seat. And talking about the seats, look how thin they are, yet they're supremely comfortable and supportive. They're also heated as well, and that's standard across both models, both the i3 and the i3s. You've got two screens mounted on the top, one directly in front of the driver and the second in the middle, which is controlled by BMW's now familiar iDrive controller mounted between the seats. Disappointingly though, whilst Apple CarPlay is available as an option, Android isn't, so people like me are a bit scuppered. Otherwise, the display itself is very easy to use, it's clear to read, and it offers all the information that you'll need, including the car's service history. It's here that unfortunately the i3 falls a little short. Now the car comes now with a 42.2 kilowatt hour battery, which BMW say should give a range of up to about 188 miles. However, the truth is it's usually a lot less than that. Today I've managed from full a range of 134 miles. Now admittedly it is slightly colder weather at the moment, but that still falls a little bit short of some of the other cars that are now available. But the main problem with the i3 at the moment is it will only charge at speeds of up to 50 kilowatts. Now, a lot of cars that are coming onto the market now were able to charge, fast charge at up to speeds of 100 kilowatt. So you are going to have to spend a little bit more time at your local charging stations. You can charge it from home from a 7 kilowatt wall box, obviously. That should charge from 0 to full in probably around about 7 hours. But from a 50 kilowatt charger on the move, you're probably looking at about 0 to 80% full in about 45-50 minutes. If the range disappoints, then it's here that the i3 claws back some of its je ne sais quoi, shall we say, because it's a really great car to drive. It's a typical BMW, which means that it's got lovely steering, lovely throttle response, and of course it's rear wheel drive. It's got a single motor mounted in the rear. Now it develops about 184 brake horsepower, so it's not M135i quick, but it's not slow either. It's sort of Mini Cooper S, sort of like warm hatch, that sort of speed that you get from it, and it really picks up speed. One, you can alter the way the car drives from this switch down here, where at the moment we're in comfort mode, which it'll tell us on the screen is its balance setting. So that's, in other words, a sort of normal throttle response, general steering input, reasonable input from the brakes as well. You can go to that to sport, which, as its name would suggest, gives us a much sportier throttle response. Weights the steering up as well. BMW were one of the first to come out with electronic power steering in its mainstream cars. In fact, I had a Z4, a Mark I Z4 that had it, and that was well over 10 years ago. So of course now the systems have developed so far on that it's difficult not to think of it as almost as good as a hydraulic system. You go from that then into Eco and Eco Pro Plus, which basically, as its name would suggest, it's gone into economy mode, so it's shutting down a lot of the systems, in other words, to maximise the range of the car. I haven't really bothered with that, if I'm honest with you. And in fairness, sport, as much as fun as it is, the car delivers in standard comfort mode. So even in standard comfort mode, the car does have a good ton of speed, but it's the handling that really, really delights. As I say, it's rear drive, so that you just feel the rear end just sort of like dig in and grip when you come out of a corner. Those of you who think that an electric car can't be fun, dare I suggest you haven't driven an i3, because this is an exceptionally good car to drive, and to hustle it down a little B road like this really, really brings out its own. If there is a trade-off, however, it is in the right comfort, but I'm going to attribute that to the S model. We've driven a standard i3 in issue 2 of the magazine, and it wasn't quite as jiggly as this. I think the larger 20-inch wheels, especially with the tyres, which are very narrow, to improve, well, rolling resistance and give it greater range, if you like, just give it that. They don't absorb like they should. Thank goodness BMW have resisted the temptation to fit run flats and fitted standard tyres with a tyre foam emergency system. Other than that, this is a great little car to throw around, and without doubt, probably the best driving EV that I can think of. There's no real getting away from this. The i3 is not an inexpensive car. This i3s that we have here starts from £38,000, and that's before any government grant. But you're then going to have to add on some options. So a well-specified one like the one we have here is still going to be the wrong side of £40,000. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. Because of the price of the i3, if you look at comparable cars in this bracket, then you are looking at things like the Hyundai Kona, the Kia e-Niro, and Tesla Model 3, but they're all very different styles of cars, so it's maybe not something that you would even consider if you're looking at those cars. So you could go smaller. You could look at something like the Peugeot e-208, BMW's own upcoming Mini Cooper SE, or even something like the Renault Zoe, but they're much, much cheaper. Tricky one, this. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the BMW i3s. We like its design, its performance and handling, which is very BMW-like. We love the interior environment and that clever engineering of the car's construction. which also leads us to love its whole life costs. We don't like the fact that the range could be a lot better in comparison with cars at the same price point. Its price is high. Practicality isn't great, and the ride quality on this S model on its 20-inch wheels can be a little bit jiggly. I'm going to come back to that area of competitors when I'm summarising the i3, because I think that's probably the most important area. It sits in a very, very odd marketplace, and because we've now got much greater choice of car, if you're looking for that family car, for instance, then you're not really going to be considering the i3. If you're looking for a car, 4-seat car to replace your BMW 3 Series diesel, then you've got the Tesla Model 3 for that. You've also got large SUVs, you've also got the smaller SUVs and the crossovers coming in, so it really doesn't sit in a particular market sector, I think. And that's the key here. I think, and I appreciate this is a purely subjective thing, this is one of BMW's greatest cars. It's bold, it's innovative, and it really, really stands out from the crowd. Not only that, but it's exciting to drive, which BMWs always have been. Now, I think if you're going to own this car, you're owning it because you want to own it. Here we have an EV that you can actually buy with your heart over your head. Before, when it was launched, we just didn't have the choice. Now we do. This shows a great piece of product design. Now, this year, we're also going to see the introduction of things like the Honda E and the Mini Cooper SE, which again, like the i3, don't offer a particularly large range for what is quite an expensive small car. But what they are is a desirable product, and I bet you that they will sell as many as they can make. That's what the i3 did 7 years ago. We just didn't know it then. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. So, you've watched our video. It's now my job to tell you to like and subscribe, and press the little bell button to receive notification of when our next video is uploaded. Sorry, what's that? You want more than just videos? Okay, did you know that AutoEV is also a website? That's right, autoev.co.uk. Not only is it all the latest news, reviews and musings, including motorsport from the electric vehicle world, but we've got literally hundreds of used electric vehicles for sale from dealers up and down the country.